Hey guys, this video is going to be all about anthology horror films. I'm going to discuss some of my favorites, some of them well known, some of them obscure, and just reflect upon some of my memories growing up, ones that made a big impression on me. Right off the bat, my favorite movie ever, my number one, is Creepshow. I saw that movie when I was like 4 years old. I came out of my bedroom. I was sleeping, and I lived at my grandmother's, and she loved horror films. And she was taping Creepshow off of HBO. And I walked out into the living room, and it was during the There's Something to Tide You Over segment, the one where Leslie Nielsen, he buries Ted Danson up to his neck in the sand, and then the tide comes in and drowns him, and then, of course, the corpses return. They're going to take him down on the beach and get their revenge. Well, I came out of the bedroom, and that was what was on the TV were those two seaweed and ocean water drenched and decomposing zombies saying come to the beach. And oh man, that blew my mind. It's weird looking back because you think that you would be scared seeing something like that at 4 years old. I was actually enthralled by what I was seeing. Those two corpses with seaweed going down their face, and then Leslie Nielsen's shooting them in the head, and you see this black blood draining down their foreheads. That epic Tom Savini special effects makeup. And yeah, I was just enthralled. I wasn't scared at all. Now, when I watched it the next day and saw the full movie, the Nathan Grantham section at the beginning, when that hand shoots out of the ground, when Bedelia's sitting there, after she drops her fucking whiskey in the dirt, and Nathan comes out of the ground, and he's got maggots in his face, and, he's like, I want my cake. That part really freaked me out. Now, I thought that was scary as hell. To this day, I would have to say the two scariest zombies, in my opinion, are Nathan Grantham and Tarman from Return of the Living Dead. Those are the two scariest in my opinion. And you'd have to catch me on a Monday, I might say Nate gets the nod, and on Tuesday I might say old slimy Tarman from Return of the Living Dead. Because either one of them, both of them are freaky zombies. I wouldn't want to run into either of those motherfuckers in a dark alley. And I love Nathan. I'd like to be his fucking friend, but I'm sure he'd still break my fucking neck because he's a badass. So the Nathan Grantham, the Father's Day segment, freaked me the fuck out. Now the Gordy Verrill story, that's just a laugh. It's fun to watch Stephen King overact and, just act like this stupid dumb hick. So that story's pretty funny. And then of course There's Something to Tide You Over. Not really that scary. But the Crate, now Fluffy, as they called him on the set, the Crate monster, he's pretty intense, and that one I found kind of frightening as a kid, when he'd pop out of there and, take people into the crate and rip them apart. And then, of course, the Crate is it's the bloodiest segment of Creepshow. That movie overall isn't a graphic movie. It's not like Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, or hell, even Martin was pretty graphic in the sense, there was a lot of veins getting cut and blood spurting and all that. It was really crude, but that got under your skin, the crude makeup effects in Martin. But I'm getting off on a tangent. The bottom line is that Creepshow was kind of Romero almost going Hollywood in a sense. It was being released by Warner Brothers Pictures, and he was teamed up with Stephen King, who was a big hot commodity at that time. He was at his peak as far as the work that he was churning out. And so Creepshow overall was lighter on the graphic violence, but the Crate spilled a good amount of blood. There was a lot of blood that got spilt down there in that downstairs area. And I liked that story a lot. And then, of course, they're creeping up. Up on You with Upson Pratt, played by E.G. Marshall. Now that's another great story, and what I liked the best about that story as a kid was the fucking profanity. You know, when he tells someone to go out and fuck someone. Anyone, you know, but wear a damn rubber. You know, everyone's got the damn herpes these days and shit like that. I really love that one. That one's got a lot of, it's got a comedic edge to it. And then, of course, at the end of that story, you know, when the roaches just come bursting out of his body, that's a great Savini makeup effects moment right there. And yeah, so top to bottom, Creepshow is just a classic. It's a masterpiece of horror. It's funny because at the time, a lot of horror fans were, I think, were so hyped up about the fact that it was Romero, King, Savini joined together, and they were so overhyped for it that it was almost like a letdown when they finally saw it. Not for me, because I didn't have that hype, okay? I was 4 years old when I first saw the damn movie. I didn't know George Romero from a fucking Big Mac at McDonald's. I didn't know. So to me, bam, that movie hit me with the intent that they created it, the point that they made it, it delivered upon it and more. Now, Creepshow 2 is a different beast in many ways than its predecessor. Instead of having John Harrison as a composer, for one thing, we get a totally different type of score. Now, the score to the original Creepshow is just probably the greatest score ever, in my opinion. You've got John Harrison using a Prophet 5 synthesizer, and what he created, the ghastly tones, just the highs and lows, the way it ebbs and flows, the fear that it inspires, but also the childlike sense of wonder mingled in with the fear. There's just so many great motifs in the original Creepshow score. Creepshow 2 kind of goes about it a different way. It's synthesizer based, but it's got this really wild flair. I think Rick Wakeman composed quite a bit of it, and I'm really keen on the score to Creepshow 2 as well. Even though it's different than Part 1, it has its own flavor, and it fits the movie, because overall, like I said, Creepshow 2 is quite a different beast. We've got, instead of George Romero directing, we've got Michael Gornick in the director's chair. I think the guy did a very good job. We got 3 stories in this one instead of 5. We've got Old Chief Woodenhead, The Raft, and The Hitchhiker. Now, if I had to pick a favorite story in Creepshow 2, I would probably have to go with The Hitchhiker. Simply because, I mean, come on, it's just entertaining from start to finish. I like how it takes place entirely at night. You've got this fucking broad that's cheating on her husband. Her husband's some rich schmuck. You know, they've got a nice fucking house, but of course, I guess his love or money or whatever the hell he gives to her isn't enough, because she's sleeping with some goddamn gigolo at the beginning of the fucking episode or story, whatever you want to call it. And she gets up, and of course we all know what happens. There's a hit and run. She runs over this fucking guy, and then he haunts her and keeps coming at her the remainder of the story, saying, "Thanks for the ride, lady." And over the course of the story, he takes more and more abuse. His face starts to deteriorate, and there's that part where she's got him up against the trunk of that tree, and she just keeps plowing her car into him over and over again, and she plows into the tree, and she's smashing him against it, and then she, you know, pulls the car back, and then she hits the gas pedal again, and she just keeps smashing this guy until he is just a bloody, mangled, pulpy, sinewy mess. And then she passes out, and then of course, anyone who's seen Creepshow 2, we all know what happens at the end of that tale. But that one is a classic, and you have to wonder, was it all in her head? You know, at the end, did she commit suicide? Or did this guy really come back after her? Or was the whole thing a figment of her imagination? You can interpret it in a couple different ways if you want, so it's up to you. But I really like that story. It's a good one. I mean, that's classic Stephen King right there. It's got a lot of his tropes in it. He likes these one-liners and certain things that get stuck in your head. Old Chief Woodenhead's a fun story. There's a lot of memorable lines in there. I like, you know, the main bad guy in that. You know, it took me, what's he say? Took him 7 fucking years to grow this hair. You know, it's going to get him paid and laid. And, you know, my buddy over there's got a Firebird. A fucking Firebird that's going to fly us all to Hollywood, USA. And one more step and blam! Love it. So that dude's a great character, you know, and he's a despicable motherfucker, you know, wasting the 2 old people. You got George Kennedy playing the one role. So you've got some good acting in this movie. Just like in the first Creepshow, Creepshow 2 has great acting. And Creepshow 2 overall has more blood. It's a bit more violent than the first Creepshow. That must be pointed out. And then the second story, of course, is pretty fun. The Raft. Everyone likes that one. You can read the original story, which was called The Float. I believe that's what the original tale was called. But anyway, you can read that in Stephen King's short story collection, Skeleton Crew, if you want to read the original text of that one. But The Raft is a lot of fun. You know, you got... Hey, Poncho and Cisco, you know, these 2 guys got a rapport, and they take their 2 girlfriends and swim out that raft, and then you got that big, black, oil slick looking motherfucking thing coming across the water at them, and it's eating them one by one, dragging them off the raft, and the makeup's really good in that one. And, man, the behind-the-scenes horror stories that the filmmakers had to put up with on that installment. You know, they had scheduled the shooting out there on that lake to shoot, and the weather was supposed to be fine. It was supposed to be sunny. Everything was supposed to be good. They get out there to shoot that installment, and the rain just pours and pours, and they lost so much time and went way over budget because they could have been, you know, finishing... They should have been finishing that installment, but they had to put the fucking thing on ice because the rain just kept coming down. Yeah, so Gornick had a hell of a time, you know, getting Creepshow 2 made. I mean, it was a kind of a nightmare production for him, and the fact that he still came out of it with a good flick, I think that speaks volumes for him. He's a good guy, too. I met him at a Cinema Wasteland convention. He's a really nice guy, signed an autograph for me. And, yeah, so... Creepshow 2, that's almost just as highly recommended as Part 1. In fact, you know what? I do recommend Creepshow 2 just as highly because it should be spoken of in the same breath. Those 2 are peas in a pod. They're like peanut butter and jelly or chocolate and peanut butter, whatever kind of fucking, you know, way you want to put them together. They belong together. Now, the next one, what was going to be Creepshow 3, but then they changed it at the last minute and decided to call it something else. Tales from the Darkside, the movie. Another good one. When I was a kid, man, I have great memories of that one when it came out in 1990. They played that movie a lot on cable. I don't know, it was probably HBO that played it, and the story that scared me the most was the Lover's Vow tale, the last one. That gargoyle, the first time you see it and it turns around on the guy after it sliced this one guy all up. I think it cut off, what was it, half of his face is all bloody in that dark alley. And then when that gargoyle turns around on the other guy and you see its face, man, I was like, I think I was like 7 years old when I saw that, and it freaked me out. The work that K&B did on that movie is phenomenal. And that monster, you know, was pretty damn well done, pretty ferocious and fierce looking. And Lover's Vow is just a really dark tale in general. It's got a really fucked up ending that you probably should see coming, but when I was 7 years old, I didn't see it coming at all. And yeah, the gargoyle makeup in that one is really good, and it freaked me out as a kid. The first story with the mummy, another one. You got Steve Buscemi in that story, Christian Slater. There's some good acting in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, just like the Creepshow 1 and 2. That story's really good. I like the parts with the mummy lurking around, and you've got Christian Slater coming up the dark stairwell in the one shot, and then in the same shot you got the mummy coming you know, on the other side of the screen. It's real suspenseful the way that story is put together, and there's some good violence in that one too, with the mummy taking the coat hanger and then sticking it up the guy's nostrils and then pulling out his brains. Now, it doesn't show everything, obviously. It was an R-rated movie, and at that time the MPAA was really fucking coming down on horror movies. I mean, they really, back then, horror movies were really being feasted upon by the censors. You know, any little bit of excessive bloodletting had to be trimmed and trimmed and trimmed for those fuckers to let it get through and get an R rating. And Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, was released through Paramount. And Paramount especially was really, you know, after the experiences that they had with the Friday the 13th series and the MPAA and the struggles they had. So to get an R rating delivered, it's amazing that Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, is as violent as it is. Because anyway, when he's pulling that coat hanger down, there are some blood splatterings that you see come out, and then just the sound effects too. There's like some tugging sound effects as he's pulling the coat hanger out of this guy's nose, and so that's a bloody part. And then when he kills the sister of the guy, when he kills the other woman, the mummy's other victim, he takes some scissors and he slices this broad's back up, just slices it up, cuts it open, and then he's stuffing flower petals in it. That's pretty bloody, pretty violent stuff for a at that time, for a mainstream production, a movie that was going to see wide release in theaters, because like I said, at that time they were pretty tough on as far as letting a movie have an R rating. So they got away with a nice little bit of violence in that movie. The second story is just hilarious. Cat from Hell. That David Johansen character, he is funny as fuck. That's another one, kind of like Upson Pratt and Creepshow. You just gotta love the profanity. At the time, watching that as a kid, I thought it was hilarious how he was cussing out this little fucking cat, you know, and saying, you know, I'm gonna get you, motherfucker. You know, nobody fucks with me. You know, when that cat scratches at his face, and then he's got a suitcase full of all these different weapons, and he's trying so many different methods to dispose of this stupid feline. You know, this cat from hell's been causing the death of so many people in this big mansion, killing off these old people one by one. So that's why the main character called in the hitman. That's why they called in the hitman to come and get rid of this damn little cat. And of course, you know, he can't. And then, of course, the gore at the end of that story is great too. With the cat coming up out of the dead body and bursting up out of his mouth. That kind of harkens back to the Upson Pratt death in Creepshow too, where you've got something, there's just something very primal about that. About, you know, whether it be an insect or an animal invading someone's body, being within them, and then just ripping them apart from the inside out. That's a very primal thing, and it's really gruesome. So overall, yeah, I've got to highly recommend Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. I still put that on a lot. Man, I put that on a lot when I go to sleep, to tell you the truth, because it's kind of a dark movie. I like putting on dark horror movies when I go to sleep. I'll put them on, just have them playing on the screen, and then I'll set the sleep timer to go off, you know, when the movie's over. But yeah, that's a good one. And John Harrison, who composed the score for the original Creepshow, he's the one who directed Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. And if you get that DVD from Paramount, there is a good commentary track with George Romero and John Harrison. I really liked hearing them together on that commentary. It's nice to hear the banter back and forth, talking about old times, productions, you know, they'll even just lapse into conversation about Dawn of the Dead and different things when they were shooting that movie. So it's a lot of fun to listen to. You can learn a lot from those types of commentary tracks. Here's this is my favorite release of Creepshow as far as DVD is concerned, was this release that came out in the UK. It's got some great special features on it. It has you know, a commentary track moderated by who moderated that? I forget now. I think Michael Felsher's his name, but it's George Romero and Tom Savini both on the commentary track for this, and that's awesome. This has also got the Just Desserts, the making of Creepshow documentary on it. That's a lot of fun to watch. I've had this one for quite a few years now, and you know, at the time when this came out, it sure beat the hell out of the regular Warner Brothers Snapper Case DVD release. So that's a good one to have. This is my favorite release of Creepshow 2, was this Anchor Bay Special Edition. A great commentary track on this with Michael Gornick. You can really learn a lot. He struggled a lot to get this movie finished. It was not an easy production, and I think he did a really good job. And man, this guy, Michael Gornick, he's got a voice for radio. I'm surprised he wasn't like some kind of talk radio host, because he's got a great voice. I mean, it's silky smooth, and it's got a deepness to it. It's got a nice timbre. And we also get some stuff with K&B, like I think it's Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger both talk about doing like the makeup effects, doing stuff for the raft, creating that, you know, mess out on the water. And so this was a great release. Now, another very well-known anthology, at least amongst us horror fans, that made a big impact on me. Not as much as Creepshow, but it really left an indelible impression, was John Carpenter's Body Bags. I watched Body Bags when it premiered on Showtime. It was in, I think it was 1993, but I watched the premiere of it in the basement at my parents' house by myself, and I thought it was, the first story in particular, the gas station, man, I thought that was pretty intense. What Carpenter did in that tale was he brought back a lot of, you know, that Halloween training went to good use, because that's what he really laid on thick, was that Halloween type suspense where you've got the wounded heroine character, you know, you got your scared girl in the front, and then you've got the wounded killer there in the back, and of course she lets her guard down, and she's, you know, sitting there in the front, and you think everything's going to be fine, but then in the background you see the killer slowly sit up, and then you know he's going to start walking at her, and she doesn't know yet. You know, Carpenter did that so great in Halloween, and then he does it again in Body Bags in that gas station segment, so I really like that one. I love the atmosphere of that story, because you've got this poor girl all alone, working at a place out in the, it looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere, this fucking gas station. We're not talking about a gas station that's right in the middle of a fucking town or in the middle of a city with fucking skyscrapers all around. We're talking about total isolation. You can hear the fucking crickets chirping, and she's got to work this gas station. I think it's her first night on the job, and meanwhile, there's deaths in the area. There's killings going on, and they don't know who the goddamn killer is. So you're already, the suspense is ratcheted up. This entire story takes place at night, and as soon as she gets dropped off at her job and she goes in there, you just know that one's going to be good from the jump. That story, from start to finish, is really good. Wes Craven turns up in a cameo in that story, which I think is funny. And it's got Robert Carradine from the Revenge of the Nerds movies in it too. So yeah, that one's a lot of fun, the very first story. Now the second story, the one about the hair, where the dude's going bald, or he thinks he's losing his hair, and then he gets that growth thing, and then of course he starts fucking growing hair everywhere. That story's more comedic. It's just for fun. It's not full-on suspense and horror like the gas station segment. So I didn't really like that one as much. But then when it gets to The Eye, the story that Tobe Hooper directed, man, that one, it really ratchets up the intensity levels a great deal, and it does it in a very sick, twisted way. The gas station is suspenseful and intense, but it's fun. It's a popcorn story, you know? You're having a good time watching that. The one that Tobe Hooper did, that last story, it's very dark, dismal, depressing, and sick. I mean, you've got this guy, you know, he gets his eye, loses his eye in some kind of car accident, and then they do an eye transplant, and what happens is the eyeball that he gets put in his head came from a guy who was executed. And the reason that guy was executed was because he was a serial murderer and rapist. And I mean, this guy had sex with dead bodies. He would kill women and then fuck their corpses. Well, that eyeball from that insane killer ends up in the main character's body. So he starts having these sick, twisted visions. And eventually it overtakes him. He becomes possessed by that killer. He starts to become violent. He does things like he'll have his wife on the bed and he'll start having rough sex with her. And he imagines killing her, and he imagines burying bodies in the backyard. And that story is just really, yeah, like I said, dark and sinister, and the ending of it cuts right to the bone. Tobe Hooper has to be commended for that one, and it kind of ends the movie on a down note. I like that story, but it kind of doesn't fit. It's kind of Body Bags is kind of schizophrenic in a sense, because the first story is a fun type thing, then the second one's even more fun in the sense that it's goofy humor, and then the third just goes off on this twisted, fucked up route. So Body Bags is kind of an uneven movie, but overall I recommend it. It's a fun anthology, and it's easy to come. You can get it's on Blu-ray now and everything, uncut and with commentary track and all that. So definitely pick that one up if you've never seen it. And the wraparound segments with John Carpenter playing he's playing like this dead mortician, and he's walking around, you know, opening up the different body bags and making little quips here and there, and he's drinking formaldehyde. It's funny, and it's nice, nice little. It keeps the mood going in between the two stories. It has that connective tissue that connects the stories together, which is very important. So overall, Body Bags, check it out. Another one that I like, I don't love it, but I do like it, and I would recommend it, at least if you want to watch the first two stories, is Nightmares. I like the first two stories, okay? I like the Terror in Topanga story, because it's, once again, it's that classic trope that lots of horror, you know, lots of good horror will utilize the trope of the woman going out, and there is a psychotic killer lurking somewhere, and you know that she's in danger the whole time. And I love stuff like that. I like suspense like that, where you've got a woman on the road, or she's going to a strange place, and you know that a madman's out there somewhere. I love stuff like that. And Terror in Topanga, what we have in that tale is this broad needs a pack of cigarettes really bad. She's having a nicotine craving like you wouldn't fucking believe. And I used to smoke, so I can relate to it. She's run out of cigarettes. For some reason, this stupid broad didn't, you know, stack up on cartons or whatever. I mean, you shouldn't be running out of cigarettes in the middle of the fucking night. I don't know what's going on with this girl. But she runs out of cigarettes, she needs a pack, so she's leaving in the middle of the night, but unfortunately there's some kind of fucking maniac on the loose, and everyone fucking knows it too. There's been stuff playing on the radio, I think, so it's no secret. So she knows that there's this threat the whole time. And she goes out in the dark, and she's driving alone, and of course, you know, we got that crazy dude out there, and so I like the atmosphere of that one. The atmosphere is really cool. Entirely shot at night, simple, to the point, effective. The second story is a lot of fun. That's with Emilio Estevez, and it's the Bishop of Battle story. I love video games, especially old video games, so seeing the scenes of Emilio Estevez's character going into the arcades and playing, you know, seeing all the arcade cabinets and then him playing this game. I like the graphics, the way they look. I like the Bishop of Battle dude that comes on the screen and talks. All of that stuff is really cool, and it really fills you with nostalgia when you watch it nowadays. And then if you like punk music, it's got, you know, a lot of punk playing on the soundtrack during that story. So that one's pretty fun. Now, the one after that, the story after that one has Lance Henriksen in it. And it's just, he's a good actor, but that story's kind of boring. And then the last story in Nightmares is about a giant rat in this family home. To be honest, I think I've only watched that story maybe twice in my entire life. Most of the time I've ever watched Nightmares or put it on, I used to work in a video store and I'd put Nightmares on occasionally. But most of the time the movie would get shut off after Bishop of Battle, or I would just cease paying attention after Bishop of Battle. So I don't really have a connection much with the latter two stories in that movie, just the first two. There's a fun one called Terror Tract, and John Ritter plays the, he plays like, not the narrator, but he's the connective part of the movie and the whole wraparound segments. That movie came out in the year 2000. I worked at a Blockbuster when that movie was on the new release shelf, and I rented it. And that's got some fun stories in it. If you've never seen Terror Tract, look it up. The second story is the funnest. It's the one that you want to find that movie. It's the whole reason you want to find that movie would be to watch the second story. It's about this monkey that comes to this family's house, and this monkey starts fucking killing everyone. Okay? And I mean, this little fucker is ruthless. And it's really funny, but at the same time, it's kind of frightening. This little fucker, he's murderous. And I mean, see, check out Terror Tract. Check out that second story with the little monkey killing people. And then, of course, we got the dearly departed John Ritter. I love John Ritter. Three's Company is one of my favorite shows of all time. And, of course, you know, he popped up in some good movies and stuff here and there, you know, as horror fans. Of course, he was in Stephen King's It, the miniseries. And, you know, he was in some goofball shit like Stay Tuned and everything. But, yeah, Terror Tract is an interesting little anthology. It just popped in my head. Another one that for years haunted me, and I didn't know what it was, but it haunted me, was The Offspring, a.k.a. From a Whisper to a Scream. Okay? In the 80s, it came out on VHS as The Offspring. But now you can get it on DVD from MGM as From a Whisper to a Scream. I think there might even be a new Blu-ray release of the movie. But that's a really good anthology. And man, it's pretty fucking gruesome at times and violent. And Jeff Burr directed that. He also directed, I think he did Stepfather 2. And he did Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. But From a Whisper to a Scream was his first movie. I believe it was his first movie. And it's a stellar anthology. And Chaz Ballin was a big fan of it too. You guys know Chaz Ballin. Of course, he wrote for Gore Zone and had the influential books More Gore Score and the Deep Red Horror Handbook, all that stuff. But he was a fan of From Whisper to a Scream also. And the thing about that, what haunted me was when I was a kid, I had remembered seeing this thing where there was this guy, an older guy, and I remembered him laying at the foot of a staircase, and he was laying on the floor, and I remembered this little monster thing standing up at the top of the stairs, and then I remembered the camera just showing him run down towards this guy, and that was all I could remember. That's all that I could remember in my head. And for years I wondered what it was. And then at some point in like the late 90s or early 2000s, I think it was around 2000, 2001, I got on an IMDb message board, okay? And I gave those details on a message board, and I said, does anyone know what movie this is? And I got some answers, and you know how it is. Sometimes you'll get some answers that you know, as soon as you read it, you're like, nah, that's not fucking right. What the hell is this guy talking about? He's steering me wrong here. But someone said The Offspring. I looked the movie up, and I was like, I think this might be it. I think it might be it. I ordered the VHS on eBay, got it, put it in, and sure enough, bam, that was the right fucking movie. I was so happy. And it just all flooded back to me. That first story is really sick. The main character in that, he's obsessed with this woman. And he's a really twisted guy. He lives with his sister, and he like gives his sister baths. And there's like this sick, incestuous subtext to the story. But also, he's a really demented prick. He ends up killing this broad, and he has sex with her dead body. And somehow her corpse, you know, somehow she's pregnant with his seed and grows a baby in her dead stomach. Now, how that's, obviously, that's totally fantastical, but in the movie, it's played really sick, even though it's a totally absurd idea. It's funny in a way. And anyway, his offspring, as it were, comes back to get him, and that's what I had remembered when I was a kid. I remembered that little monster baby standing at the top of the stairs and then running down towards him. So yeah, that one was a good story. And then there's the one about this guy. He eats glass. He works at a carnival, and he's able to eat glass and it doesn't hurt him. Well, that one has a really sick, violent ending as well. It's hardcore shit for back then, for in a horror anthology. And then there's another story about, it's got the guy from Weekend at Bernie's, and the ending to that one reminds me of the video for Metallica's One. You know, where you've got this helpless guy who's in agonies and torture, but he can't die, and no one can hear his anguished cries because he can't speak or anything. And that's what the story with the Weekend, the Terry Kaiser guy, that's his name, Terry Kaiser from Weekend at Bernie's, is in the story where, oh man, this voodoo guy really fucks him up bad. It's super violent, man. The Offspring, you gotta check it out if you haven't seen it. It's also called, if you want to get the DVD, or if they have it on Blu-ray, it's called From a Whisper to a Scream. And Vincent Price, it's one of his last movies. Vincent Price is in the wraparound segments. So definitely check that one out. That's a really, there's some good violence in that one. The only story that isn't that good in From a Whisper to a Scream is the last story. The last story is basically like Children of the Corn, but set back in like the Civil War days or something. And it's just it's just fucking boring. Doesn't do much for me. The first 3 stories, really good. So I recommend that one. House of the Dead is one that you don't hear a lot of people talk about. It was also called Alien Zone, which has nothing to do with the movie, as there are no aliens in this film, okay? So they wisely changed the title to House of the Dead. It was made in 1978, but I don't think it was even released until 1981. The first story is about this teacher who's haunted by these kids from her school. And I remember they wore these really creepy masks, and they come into her apartment and try to get her. And that story was pretty good. There's also a story about a guy who is a serial killer, and he films himself killing his victims. Now, this kind of stuff, for that's kind of ahead of its time. That's something that you would expect to see in a movie nowadays. And so that was an interesting plot device in that story. And then I remember the final story in House of the Dead has to do with some dude who he's trapped in this house and there's like different traps, and he's at one point he's got to walk through this narrow hall and there's like nails coming out of the wall or something like that. And I haven't watched that one in a long time, but it's very easy to come by. You can't get a good print of it or nothing. There isn't a DVD company that's released a polished edition of it with special features, because it's I guess it's a public domain film, because you can find it on all kinds of budget packs. But it's called House of the Dead. And no, it's not that stupid shit based on a video game that came out in the 2000s. This is a 1978 anthology horror film with some good creepiness and some good atmosphere to it, and I like that one. And like I said, you can find it on many of those budget packs where they have like 50 different movies, so check that one out. There's a movie from the 80s called Terrorgram. It's fun. I don't remember much about it offhand, but I can tell you I thought it was fun, so it's worth mentioning in this video. Hell, I thought that Grim Prairie Tales was okay. If you like westerns, which I've got to be in a certain type of mood for westerns, and you know, that one's set in the Old West, and you've got two guys telling each other, you know, tales. And I remember, I haven't watched that one in a long time, but I thought it was okay. Getting back to House of the Dead, though, I just now remembered, and I don't want to neglect to mention this, but the wraparound in House of the Dead was also kind of copied by Tales from the Hood, in the sense that in House of the Dead you have a mortician taking this guy into his mortuary, and he's telling the guy tales about how each body met its fate, and he's telling it to the guy in the mortuary. Tales from the Hood, which is a fun 90s anthology, you know, that one's pretty fun. It took that plot device from House of the Dead. I'm sure the filmmakers probably saw it, and that's where they got that idea from, unless there was another movie that I haven't seen or I'm just forgetting that also did the same thing. But I think that Tales from the Hood definitely took that idea from House of the Dead, that framing device of the mortician telling the tales. Here's a couple. I need to watch these again. This one's called Night Terror. This has no official DVD release. I also have a VHS copy of this somewhere. Magnum put this out. This is I remember this being a goofy anthology movie, and I had fun watching it. I watched it once about 4 years ago, and I just haven't gotten around to watching it since then. But I'm hoping that when I watch it again, I have as much fun with it as I did last time. It's called Night Terror, and it was put out by Magnum Entertainment on VHS, and maybe one day we'll get a nice DVD release of this one. But this one was fun. I liked it. Here's one I've told you before. If you watched my television horror rant, then you know that I love the show The Hitchhiker. And I told you that the reason I have a specific fondness for that show is the real life violence. It focuses almost predominantly on real life things like infidelity and blackmail and revenge, stuff where people are fucking each other over, you know, real life type stuff. There's not really much supernatural shit going on in The Hitchhiker. So, you know, I like supernatural, I like all that shit, but I also like crime-based stuff. Well, this anthology, Mania, Episodes in Terror, deals entirely in stuff like that. If you like shock stories, crime stories, stuff like that, Mania is good, because it's all kept in that realistic realm. And I do believe that this is also a Canadian production, which a lot of the Hitchhiker stuff was as well. And I haven't watched this one in a while. I need to watch it again. There is no official DVD for this either. Vista Home Video put it out on VHS in the 80s, but it's a fun anthology, and I like this one. One anthology that I really wanted to love, but I really don't care for that much, I found mediocre, was Scream Time. Once again, no DVD for that. You have to get the Lightning video release, Lightning, you know, was the sub-label or whatever you want to call it of Vestron. And that Lightning VHS has a phenomenal cover. It's got the painting of the broad looking through the window. I think it's got like drapes blowing, and it's really creepy and imaginative. I mean, it gets your brain working. It's one of those covers when you saw it on the video store shelf, you wanted to rent that fucking movie. And I actually bought that VHS for like $1 a long time ago, and I was like, man, I hope this is good, because I already knew it was an anthology, and I love stuff like that. Took it home and watched it, and I just wasn't that impressed with Scream Time overall. I didn't like the puppet story about the guy with the fucking Punch and Judy type puppets. Didn't like it. I didn't like the way that story ended. And just offhand, besides that, I can't even remember much about Scream Time. The thing that always sticks in my head the most about Scream Time is how much I love the cover painting. It's really great artwork. So that's all I have to say about Scream Time. Satan Place, if you've watched my horror movie douchebag review, is a really fun shot on video anthology. And I mean, the entertainment value of that one is through the roof. These people had like no budget, you know, it's shot on video, but the imagination is what matters. The imagination level for that anthology is just through the roof. You've got entertainment value non-stop. There's blood and gore galore. There's a lot of funny humor, and I mean, it's funny. The jokes don't miss in Satan's Place. They hit after hit. Every story is really entertaining, so I highly recommend, if you've never seen Satan Place, try to figure out a way to track that one down. It's very rare, but man, is it worth watching. As far as more contemporary anthology horror, the one I watched Trick or Treat, okay, but I didn't really care much for it. I don't know. I just think it's kind of fucking lame. It seems to have a lot of fans. A lot of people really like it, but man, I'm not feeling it. I really didn't like Trick or Treat. You know which one I liked quite a bit? Was that All Hallows Eve. Now, I'm not talking, don't watch All Hallows Eve 2. Man, is that a piece of shit. I mean, just fucking terrible. Don't watch All Hallows Eve 2. It's just pure garbage. I'm talking about the first one. If you want to check out a good, newer horror anthology, the first All Hallows Eve is very mean-spirited. Just really grim shit, especially the last story with that creepy-ass clown going after this woman. And man, it's just really, it's pretty vile. That one's got some pretty sick shit in it, and I really liked All Hallows Eve, so definitely pick that one up if you get a chance. I don't want to spoil anything from that. Even the story in the middle section of All Hallows Eve with the woman out at this house out in the country, and there's like this fucking alien. I even thought that one was pretty good. And just the parts where the clown himself, he's pretty creepy, especially when he's looking right at the camera and he just keeps coming closer and closer. I thought that was really, really creepy, sinister stuff. So I was really happy with that movie. Very impressed. I'm not very often impressed by newer movies, but All Hallows Eve, I always tell people that I enjoyed that one. There was another one that came out, I want to say, in somewhere between 2008 and 2010 called, I think it was Amusement. I liked it okay too. So the two newer anthology horror flicks that I liked were Amusement and All Hallows Eve. Both of them, I'd say check those fuckers out because they're pretty good. You want to see my Creepshow book? This is actually, they're going to reprint this, believe it or not. I mean, this is like a collector's item. This is the original Creepshow that was released, the book adaptation, the comic book, with Jack Kamen did the cover, but on the inside it's Bernie Wrightson artwork. So yeah, it's my Creepshow book right there. I wanted to show you real quick. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a fun time making it. And if you want to talk further about anthology horror films, please leave me a comment. Because, like, anthology films are like the bastard son of the horror subgenre in the sense that they don't often get the respect they deserve, because people think, a lot of people want to watch a movie where there's just one plot line and you go in and that plot develops and it's just one storyline. They don't like the jaggedness, the suddenness of getting into a story and it gets in and bam and then it gets out. That's what I like about anthology horror. I like these short bursts of imagination and seeing what's the next tale going to be about? What's going to be on display this time? Is this going to be a bloody story? Is this going to be a funny one? Is this one going to be really dark and depraved with sick shit? You know, you never know what you're going to get with an anthology horror movie, and that's what I love about them. So hit the like button, leave me a comment, and if you're new to my channel, subscribe, and I'll be making more horror videos for you guys all the time. And thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.